Okay, this video is another one where you're simplifying using conjugate. Again, this would go with IXL code TYC. So IXL code TYC. All right, so if I'm looking at this and I say it tells me to simplify, well, I know that this is not simplified because I have a radical on the bottom and I got that 1 plus, like the extra number on there. So in order to simplify this, to undo that little square root on the bottom, I'm going to need to do a conjugate. Remember, conjugate is everything's the same on the bottom except for the sign. So the 1 stays the same, square root of 7 stays the same, but instead of plus, I'm going to put a minus there. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 1 minus square root of 7. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this so that I'm multiplying this thing in. On top, I have a 1 times parentheses 1 minus square root of 7. On the bottom, I have 1 plus square root of 7 times 1 minus square root of 7. Now, I can do this top part pretty easily, right? I take the 1 distributed in. 1 times 1 is going to give me 1. I have a minus, so put a minus sign there. 1 distributed in. 1 times square root of 7. I would have a 1 in front of the square root. And then 7 on the inside of that square root. Now, on the bottom part, that's the part that gets a little tricky, right? On the bottom part, I have to multiply this. Now, remember, I'm using the box to help me multiply, right? Here's my box. And I'm going to put each of the parentheses on the side, on the outside of the box. So I have a 1 plus square root of 7. Each one of those terms gets its own column. And then the other parentheses, 1 gets its own row, minus square root of 7 gets its own row. Now I'm going to multiply these two outside number and write it on the inside. So I'm going to have 1 times 1. The answer is 1, so write that down. 1 times positive square root of 7. I would have a positive number. The 1 is on the outside, square root of 7 right next to it. And then 1 times negative square root of 7. It's going to be a negative number because positive times a negative is negative. I have a 1 on the outside, and then you have a 7 inside a square root, so square root of 7. Last box is positive square root of 7 times negative square root of 7. So you have a positive times a negative. That's going to give me a negative. 7 are both inside a square root, so I need to write a big square root and put 7 times 7 on there. Now, if I did everything right, which it looks like I did, my two diagonal, you have a positive 1 square root of 7, and you have a negative 1 square root of 7. Those should cancel out because it's the same number, just different opposite sign. That leaves me with 1 in the first box, and then minus, if you look at the second box, I have a pair of, not the second box, if you look at the last box, I have a pair of 7. That means I can actually kick it out. So I would have a minus 7 got kicked out. And there's nothing left inside a square root, so I'm not even going to write it down. Look, if you have 1 minus 7, you can work this out. This becomes negative 6. This number would go on the bottom, minus 6. Now, there's nothing else I can do, right? The square root on top can be simplified. There's no square root on the bottom. So my final answer is going to be 1 minus square root of 7 all over negative 6. That is the simplified form of 1 over 1 plus square root of 7.